All right, welcome back to the movement. My name is Zoe Levine. If you're just starting to tune and in my video, so it's a little bit bigger here. Schedule is all about hands and wrists, and I say wrists, but point to my neck, because so much of what's going on in our hands is a reflection of what's going on in our necks. If you can imagine your body as your kind of fascia as almost like a sleeve, if that tissue is tight and stuck around your hands, that's going to change that webbing all the way up into the shoulder and the neck. If we can get some space down here, often you'll find a little more space up in this very connected tissue of the neck and shoulders, which I understand typically is a very big problem area for many folks. And I know from a lot of you, our shoulder exercises have been some of the favorites. So let's start with some of those now, and then we'll get down into the fingers and the hands. And then next week, Jenny, seeing you here reminds me that I still want to get some music going and kind of get more playful with some of our movements here, and we can start working on that next month, which is next week. So starting with snow globe. So many of you have said this is your favorite. Start slow. You can be sitting tall on your sits bones, might be really helpful. I was not. I was all curled up under with one leg under me, which I often do. And just start playing around with that. I am in a snow globe and trying to paint or reach the outer edges. And just a reminder, as you go up to the top, remember, I'm never going to say never do things. In fact, it might feel really nice to let your ribs pop out at some point to stretch up. Also, that's going to be a cheat for your shoulder. So you could do both, the popping of the ribs and then the dropping of the ribs, and seeing your arms probably not going to get as high if those ribs are down, right? So you can play with up high, you can play with wide to the side. You can start to move your fingers and your wrists. So starting that play of what happens if you're reaching. I would keep it simple with the arms when you're starting to play with your hands. But what happens, you're reaching really wide and starting to find movement in your wrists. Do you feel that it's a bigger fascial pull? It's a whole different thing, a different animal. And you can also play with rotation. And even as you rotate, keep in mind, if you got your arms out here for a long period of time, your shoulders might get tired. But if you're getting that width, you're getting tired from underneath here, ideally, rather than up top as much. And you might need to lower your arms to find that. But just experiment for a minute. Spreading fingers, fists, wrists can bend in all different ways. So this alone, if you just take your snow globe and turn it into not just about your shoulders, but let your fingers come alive in your snow globe, that alone is going to be a huge thing for that whole fascial line. So if you want to think of that kind of sweater shirt idea, you're just giving the whole thing a tug so you have more space in the whole line. So you're stretching out a tight sweater that's gotten a little too shrunken in on you, right? It's kind of what it's like. All right, rest the arms for a second. Just let your shoulders hang on your rib cage for a moment, just to notice where you're at. Are you feeling tension in your shoulders from above or not? And before we get into the hands even more, let's play with the side rib space like we do, another favorite. So breathing into that side ribs, it doesn't have to be super far. It can be a little bit more of a length. And let your shoulder be a part of that length. And then could you take a hand, maybe some of you can reach your ribs, but you could take a breath into that space, whether your hand reaches there or not. I like to do kind of a 3 sniff breath sometimes. So 1, 2, 3, and then an exhale, like you're pushing your hand away, you're using your hand. You can try that one more time, kind of a 3 inhale, expanding, 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 and letting it drop. Let that arm relax down. And then same thing, other side, rib cage. Remember, we're not trying to pop the ribs out here. See if you can line them up kind of in that, talk about the torso like a slinky a lot. Line up your slinky so you're not popping out the front. And then you can take a side bend with length. So it's like the whole slinky is finding length instead of the collapse, the droopy slinky going down the stairs. It's a long slinky with the ribs down in the front. But you can play with the 3 sniffs, the sniff, 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 kind of getting bigger and letting it fall in. And you're reaching as much as feels good to you. If your back doesn't like reaching too far, you can keep it more of an upward reach. Just a couple of times, maybe one more, just saying hi to those side ribs. Excellent. And then playing a little game here, still sitting. So your spine is made up of many bones, many vertebra, and we tend to just feel like this is how my spine moves, kind of from one spot. But if just for a moment, you could do this with your eyes closed, you could imagine your spine being a little slinky with lots of pieces. I might grab a thing to show that with, but start just kind of wiggling your spine in maybe a silly way. A little broken. You've seen these toys before, right? That have all the gooey movements. They're just many parts. So see if you can, even in these small little ways, imagine your spine being a little gooey. You could imagine your breath kind of playing along each vertebra. And you're going to have spots that feel a little sticky and spots that feel like they have more movement. That's okay. Just get a little wiggly all the way up into the base of the skull. Gets movement all the way down to the tailbone, gets movement. Just a little hydrating for the spine in case you've been sitting stiff in one position for a long period of time, like we do as grown-ups. And then just sitting tall, maybe close your eyes, feel your sits bones heavy on your seat. And feel a breath long through the whole spine, as if your breath could lengthen the space between each vertebra. Feeling the head float right on top. And then we'll take 3 breaths like this, but imagine your torso was a container that you could start filling down low and then kind of let the fill come all the way to the top and help lengthen your spine. And then you can let it all deflate and all the air comes out. And so it's just a play. You can take as long as you want with each one, but imagining that you could fill up your pelvis with air first. I know that sounds silly for maybe for some of you because your lungs are up higher, but the sensation of breath and using your imagination, starting in your pelvis, so your belly might move, and then kind of growing a little bit higher and higher and higher, imagining that breath could build and lengthen your spine. Just as a new silly way of looking at breath and length and sitting tall. And then the same thing, maybe one more time. Sometimes I let myself wiggle to get that length. And just sighing it out. Beautiful. And just notice if that shifted anything in how easy or not it is to sit tall on your sits bones. And let's take those hands out. So soon we will have access to some amazing balls as tools to use for your hands and for your feet. For now, we're going to work in stretches and play with that. We started a little bit of this last week, so some of you may have started practicing this. Let's just do some assessments for your hands first. Take your forearms together and then open your palms up. Ideally, you get pretty flat like a T. Kelly's got a nice flat T going on there. A lot of us get stuck. I don't get flat, you'll notice. I got a little V shape going on. And I'm pointing that out because we get stuck here. It's part of that line, right? That fascial line. And if it's a little tight or stuck, we can help to make that better and have more space along the whole line, which is going to help everything: shoulders, neck, hands, wrists, elbows, everything in that line. So for a stretch, bent elbow out in front. You're just going to pull on any amount of fingers, all of them, one of them, two of them. It doesn't matter. We're going to do a lot of different things with it. But you can start just giving a little stretch and pull kind of up and over that wrist, as opposed to, it's not just about the fingers stretching back, but it's not just about the wrist. It's this wrist finger pull out in front of you. And be gentle. This could be, if this is the first time you're doing something like this, be gentle with it. And you might notice some tension or tight spots in your fingers in your hand. For some of you, it's more in your wrist. And you can see this is kind of the counter vitamin to, right? We have our little T-Rex arms that are always in kind of a curled in position typing. So it's just a way to find some expansion the other direction. And this is something that can easily be done at your computer during a thought break, right? You just kind of scoot back or thinking about what's next. A lot of people, and I do this sometimes at a stoplight in the car. So this could be a car thing against the steering wheel sometimes is nice. Switch sides if you haven't already. And again, it could be one finger at a time, just kind of hanging out. Could be all the fingers and then go through one or two at a time. You could like play. How many times do I give you absolutes? There's so much to play with here. You can make it your own. But the one thing that I would encourage is, again, it's not about just the fingers and it's not about just the wrist. It's the finger wrist combo. And sometimes watch that you're not just doing this with the bent fingers all the time. You can really open them up and get that whole line to kind of dive open. Just play with that. Good. Really gently, sweetly. And then for your thumbs, you can hold your hand like turn it into like a joystick. Thumbs up, little thumbs up. And you can get the other hand pretty low on there. So imagine your thumb isn't just this top part, but this whole thumb pad is part of your thumb. And last week we talked about, I don't know, some of you may have started to look around and notice as we age, what happens is we lose space in all the places that we don't continue to ask for space in. It's not just it have to, but if we stop using it. So if our hands are all the time in kind of doing mode and the thumbs are always folded in, you look around, you'll see as we age, the thumbs get stuck in, right? There's a lot of arthritis in hands. Arthritis is just like that tight skin bag, never looking for space in many ways, right? If all our joints are being shoved together all the time in a tight skin bag, all of these things are asking for more space all the time. So you have this whole thumb and we're trying to get out of this kind of squish that happens and it gets stuck there. So thumbs up, grab from down low, and you can pull back like a joystick. And there's flexibility there in terms of where you're pulling back, but the idea is to give it a little pull back. And you can have your hands resting on the desk. It doesn't have to be up in the air. And, you know, with all of this work, how long do I need to do it? I don't know. How long did you have to stop at the stoplight? You know, it's like, it's just the act of getting in there at all on a regular basis is the big deal. Yeah. And then the same thing to the other side. Grabbing down low, that thumb goes really low. And then give it a little leverage like you're pulling on a joystick. And again, be gentle. There's a tendency, I think, to feel like I'm tight, I've got to pull really hard. No need, just a little It's the same thing that we always do. If it feels tight and stuck, it's the continuous working at it that will make a difference. It's not this one time that's gonna crank it out and change everything. Good. And so even just with that, you could try forearms together and see if there's a little bit more ease in the opening, right? Maybe there's a little bit more space there. Then the next one is more for the back of the hand and the wrist. There's a lot of wrist tension that tends to come with our typing and daily work, especially in the back, kind of just holding the hands, right? That work in the back here. So one thing, one stretch next to that is if you take your hands down, I guess you can see everything, down low, back to back, and make a fist with your thumb. Your thumb goes inside. And then you're gonna keep the fist, keep the thumb inside, try to relax your shoulders. It's gonna be hard. And then you're trying to pull up kind of at your center right next to your body. And you'll notice mine start popping out right away. The fingers start wanting to open. So you're just trying to keep the fingers in. Shoulders easy. And trying to pull up as high as you can, keeping the backs of your hands together. My fingers are popping out. And just wherever that is for you, find that stretch and kind of hang out there. Nice. And then one of my favorite spots to work at massage wise that tends to get a little tender and has everything to do with all of the tendons that move your fingers. I do this with balls as well, and we might revisit this once you have the balls, but it's pretty easy to get at with your fingers. I think the easiest way for now would be to, if you let one arm kind of drape over, you could rest it to your shoulder or just let it be up in the air and just find with your fingers, look around and explore that whole area in this kind of, you can call it the upper part of the forearm. It's lower right now. And just see if there's anything that feels tender. And if you find a spot, once you move around, you find a spot, you could circle it really gently. You can also pin down that tissue, so kind of keep it there and wiggle your fingers. Right? Do you feel how your fingers are controlled from up here? You could rotate over it. And so if that's a tender spot that just feels oh so amazing, this might just float into your world as a habit that calls to you, right? Sometimes when you find those spots that, oh yeah, that's a good one for me, and you'll just take breaks and it calls to you and it just feels good. But notice that freedom, right? You have when you have a little space there. Try the same thing to the other side. And we'll finish with this. So one hand over. Just a little massage, whatever feels nice at first, maybe keeping the hand still. Just hard to do. If you get a tight spot, you'll feel your fingers move. You feel that just by massaging that tissue. And then you can find a tender spot and stay there and wiggle your fingers. It's another way to get that shearing effect. It's a great way to hydrate that tissue. Give you a little space where you get tight. You can try that rotation, might feel really nice. You feel the radius and the ulna switching places. Good. And let that go. Shake out, move your arms however you want. Notice if your snow globe feels a little different. You're playing with your arms. If there's any more freedom in the shoulders or the neck, as you play with that, that might feel different. And then rest your arms down by your side. Maybe close your eyes. Take that big long breath through your spine. Notice if your arms are hanging draped over your rib cage, maybe with more ease than they were before, with a little more space. And then when you're ready, open your eyes. And that's it for today. So I invite you to choose one or two bits that felt really good to you that you might want to bring into your everyday life. Pretty easy. And just start playing around with that. But kind of think of that now. Like you probably have a favorite. Right? Great. All right.
Thanks, Zoe.
Everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Diane.
Thank you.
Bye.